what about insurance? Do we need to insure our life? Again, I'm not an insurance salesman. I'm going to tell you things that most insurance people probably wouldn't tell you today. But the question is, do we really need insurance? And I think for the most part, most people, the answer is absolutely yes. And when we're talking about health and life, which insurances am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about health insurance, talking about life insurance, long-term disability insurance, and long-term care insurance. Those, depending on where you are in life, are extremely important for you to have. Now, health insurance. Very often I'll meet with a young dentist and they say, you know what, I can't afford health insurance. And I look at them like they're crazy because everyone has to have health insurance. It's a basic need. Being able to care for yourself in case of a medical emergency is a basic need. So health insurance clearly is not it's not a luxury item. It's something that we all need. So I would encourage everyone, if you don't have health insurance, to get a health insurance policy. With that said, the federal government gives us a lot of special tax breaks, tax privileges, to make it more affordable. The Health Care Reform Act, I'm sure everybody heard a lot of things about the Health Care Reform Act. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I do have a brochure at my booth. If you come out to my table, I have a brochure that talks about the Health Care Reform Act and what it means to you. The basic idea there with the Health Care Reform Act was that Obama was going to make health care affordable and available to everybody. Again, by a show of hands, how many people in the room have their health insurance premiums gone down dramatically over the last 2 years? Has anybody noticed that? Have they gone down over the last 2 years since this Health Care Reform Act was passed? They've gone up, right? I haven't seen anybody whose health insurance went down. As a matter of fact, just for my firm alone, right after the passage of the Health Care Reform Act, my insurance company sent me a notice that my health insurance premiums for my employees were going to double. New York State prevented them from increasing it all in 1 year, so they're doing it gradually over a 4-year period. The reason I'm saying this is because the Health Care Reform Act, although it was well intended, I think the consequences of it have really been kind of frightening. Nobody would argue that everyone should have health insurance, even if there's a pre-existing condition. But let's face it, an insurance company is only going to provide you a health insurance policy if you're insurable. If you're not insurable and now they're forced to provide you with the health insurance policy, how is the insurance company going to make up from that? Are they going to take it out of their profits? No, they're going to raise their premiums because statistically they figure out the odds of how much money they're going to pay out. If you now start covering family members, children up through the age of 26, instead of, I believe it used to be 21, the question is, who's going to pay for that? Well, who's going to pay for that is everyone through the increase in premiums. A lot of insurance companies used to put a cap, $1 million cap on the amount of health benefits they would pay out in case of a medical situation. Part of the Health Care Reform Act is saying there is no cap. Again, who's going to pay for that? We're all going to pay for that in the form of higher premiums because none of us like the insurance companies, right? I don't think anybody really cares for them. But they're not going to sell policies and do it at a loss. They're going to still filter in their profit margin, and the way they're going to do that is by increasing the premium. So healthcare, there's a lot of issues there. I think we have a long way to go to resolving those problems that we have in that healthcare industry, but that, I guess, is a subject for another day. The good news is that health insurance, if you're paying for it through your business, through your practice, it is fully deductible. So you do get a tax break for it. Again, if you're in a 50% tax bracket, it means the government is footing the bill for half of it, so you do get that break. You do have to provide it to your employees, as most of you know, on a non-discriminatory basis in order to make it tax deductible. One of the other things the Health Care Reform Act put together was this tax credit. So if you're providing health insurance to your employees, you may be entitled to a tax credit up to 30% of the premium you paid on behalf of your employee. That tax credit is very rarely utilized. A lot of people don't pay attention to it, but it really is real money if you qualify. The criteria for that is a little strict, so a lot of businesses will not qualify for it. So the average wage you're supposed to be paying an employee is somewhere around $25,000, and then it phases out after $50,000. Also, if you have more than 50 full-time employees, you don't qualify for it. So all I'm saying is just take a look at that. If you haven't already, speak to your tax guy. Make sure they're analyzing whether or not you're taking advantage of that special tax credit. If you fall into that category, it could be a very big help to you. So that's health insurance. Now, what about long-term disability? I think it's fair to say that everyone needs to have long-term disability. That, again, is not a luxury item. That is a necessity as far as I'm concerned. If, God forbid, you became disabled and unable to work, who's going to pay the mortgage? Who's going to pay for your children's education? Who's going to put food on the table? That disability policy is definitely a necessity. Unfortunately, disability, when you pay it, we're talking about long-term disability, it's not tax deductible to your business, but the money you receive from that payment is tax-free. So that's one of the few tax-free benefits that you could get, and that comes from a disability policy. Question of life insurance. And again, I'm just touching on these subjects, but these are the key issues that you have to deal with at one point or another in your life. The question is, life insurance, is that really a necessity? Do we all need life insurance? And the answer to that is it depends. Not everybody needs life insurance. Most insurance guys will probably tell you you need, the super deluxe policy and you got to pay all these types of crazy premiums. But what I'm telling you is you really have to look at your own particular situation. So if you're single, you have no dependents, nobody's counting on your salary, do you need life insurance? Probably not, right? Probably not. Because life insurance is something that you personally will never benefit from. It's the least selfish thing you'll ever do in your life is when you pay that premium for that life insurance, because it's not really for your benefit, it's for the benefit of your loved ones. So life insurance becomes more and more important when you have young family members, children, or you have a spouse that doesn't work and relies on your income. In the event of your passing, that life insurance has to be able to generate sufficient income to make up for your lost wages so that your family could maintain their standard of living. Now, for most people, they really could accomplish that with a simple, inexpensive term policy. So let's assume you have young children and you expect the next 30 years to be critical earning years for you. You could probably get a very inexpensive 30-year term policy, pay bare bone premium for that, and lock that low premium in for the next 30 years. And those 30 years would be the critical years. Your two little children were born last year. You want to see that they get through college. You want to make sure your mortgage is paid off. And maybe by the time you turn 67 or so, you're going to be ready for retirement, and you've already achieved your own personal point X. Strictly from caring for your family and worrying about your family, once you become financially independent, the need of life insurance for the purpose of supplementing your income, it really isn't there anymore. Why? Because you've already accumulated enough assets where the income that's going to be generated from those assets will support your family in the way you desire them to be supported. So the question then becomes, what's the best thing to do? And my feeling on this subject is if term insurance does the trick for you, just buy the simple term. The money you save, put that in some other investment vehicle. I know whole life universal policies, they talk to you about the fact that there's investments within them, and that's all true and fine, but you'll do much better from a cost point of view, from a rate of return point of view, if you invest that money directly in an investment vehicle and not through some insurance policy. So it's going to be long-term care insurance that I'm going to talk to you about. Most of us don't worry about this when we're in our 20s or 30s. It starts to become more of an issue to us when we approach our 50s, 60s, 70s. What exactly is long-term care insurance, and what do we mean by that? Number one, your basic health insurance plan will not cover you for long-term care needs. So what do I mean by this? You go into a hospital, you're covered for your medical bills. Most medical insurance policies, including Medicare, will cover you for something like 30 to 45 days. After that, you're really on your own. You have to pay out of pocket. If you need nursing care at home 24/7, that could get pretty expensive because of some sort of illness, disease, whatever problem you may have. If you need to enter a nursing home, same thing, no health insurance policy pays for that. So that's the purpose of long-term care insurance, is to fill that void. Now, there are a lot of different ways that you could fill that void. Long-term care insurance is just one of them. I wouldn't automatically run out and buy a long-term care insurance policy until you got a good understanding of all the different options that you would have in this area, especially someone in their 70s who's already ill. First of all, you probably can't even get a long-term care insurance policy, and if you could, it would be too costly.